I considered myself wealthy. I think I sold something like 5 or 6 pelts. God, and the Pier Park stunk for about a week. I mean, the smell of skunk through that area, and no one knew. No one knew. And my mother, to the day she died, didn't know it was me. I would never tell her. I had lots of dates. Because I'll say, once you have wings and bars, they flock. I did a fabulous job. The guys were, they wanted an encore, but I didn't have another song. Piece of flak come right through my table. Put a hole in the table about 2 inches around. If I was I wouldn't be here. I would have had no head or anything. My 14th mission was terrible. It was then I should have realized this is a girl. We have a baby for you. And I said, tell her we're going on vacation. It's God, family, faith, and country.
Let's go back to when you got married. I just wanted to ask a question about how you decided where you were going to live.
How did we decide? Well, very simple. I think we decided originally, without looking around in New York City or anything, that we would live up county here in Westchester. And we just kept looking and checking the ads. And lo and behold, the place that we found was perfect for us. It was at the end of a trolley line, not the end of a trolley line, but called the end of a trolley line. I went by the street that goes into the New York City train that Betty Ann could take. I could drive her to the train. I could pick her up. Sometimes it was not possible for me to. But it just happened. I mean, everything in life happens by chance, and it was just by chance we found this ad in the paper.
So when you first got married, what was Betty Ann doing?
She was working for Look magazine as a secretary. And she enjoyed it there, too. She had good bosses. She had a good job there. Very good.
And then she worked there until?
She worked there until, we like to say she worked there until she was never pregnant but had a baby. She worked there until Billy came.
So how did Billy come?
Well, this was Betty Ann's idea, which was great. She said, we're going to put in, how about we put in for an adoption? And I putting it off a little bit, and I said, finally we agreed. We went down to the New York Foundling, put in our application. We got accepted. Told us to expect the baby around September of 1958. We decided, well, June came, and we'd take a vacation, and we'd go down to Virginia, play golf, go to the beach, and just have a nice week to ourselves. The week before, the Saturday before we were going on vacation, we get a telephone call while we're almost leaving the house. And there was a woman on the other side that says, we have a baby for you. And I said, tell her we're going on vacation. I said, we can't do that. I got a deposit on it. We have a deposit on the place down in Virginia. So anyway, we went down, and on the way down we said, because they told us he was 5 months old. And we said, nobody wanted him in five months? Why should we take him? So we get down there, and that was it. We didn't have a diaper. We didn't have a crib. We didn't have a stroller. We had absolutely nothing in the house. So Bloomingdale's was downtown then. And Betty Ann said, well, can we come back? We buy some stuff. And then we said, we can't leave him here. So we said, we'll be back in 1 hour. We went to Bloomie's, and we bought as much as we could with the money we were going on vacation with. And we stopped off at where Betty Ann's mother was working. She was working in Royal Hospital. She came up with us. I notified everybody. My mother came over. My aunt came over. The people next door put up a crib for us because I had no idea what to do. And they said he had an upper respiratory infection. I was awake all night because I had him next to the bed next to me. I'd say, I think he stopped breathing. But that was it. And then Betty Ann went back to work that Monday. That was a Saturday. She went back to work Monday and says, I have to quit my job because I just gave birth. And they were very nice. They had a party for us and everything. But that was the second best thing I ever did.
So how did you come up with his name?
Well, I always liked Bill. I always liked the name Bill. My brother's middle name is Bill, but I always liked Bill. And I didn't like Frank. I like Francis a heck of a lot better than I like Frank. But we came up with Bill. His name was, his baptismal name was Arthur something. So we had to keep one of the names. So we kept Arthur. And that's how Bill came.
So what was he like as a little boy?
Oh, he was good. I tell you, he was a good little boy. You tell him to stay there, don't come out, or he'd yell for us in the crib. We'd say, we'll be there in 20 minutes. Just stay. He was good to raise, and he was a good little boy.
Do you have any special memories of things that happened when he was very young or when he was a baby?
No, everything just worked out so nicely. We were in that apartment for 2 years, the first 2 years, and we moved to my mother's house. My mother adored him.
So how long were you staying at your mother's? How long did you stay at your
We
mother's?
stayed at my mother and upstairs, and she had a two-family house. We had one of the few two-family houses in the Pura Park. There was maybe a couple, and we stayed upstairs in the house. And my father had already died. My father had died. Billy was born January 13th, 1958. My father died January 18th, 1958. So when we moved upstairs, I told my mother, I said, listen, you don't have to worry about anything. We'll take care of the taxes and the expenses of the house. So we were there when Lizanne came, when we adopted Liz. That was another second greatest moment.
So tell me about that.
Well, we had put in for another adoption, and we went down to the family, and we brought Billy with us. And that nun looked at Billy and kept talking to us, and kept looking at Billy and talking to us and looking at Billy. And 9 months after we were accepted for the second child, Lizanne came. And you can see the pictures of the two. They look more like blood brother and sister than most brothers and sisters do. She wasn't as easy to raise as Billy. She was very independent. Both my kids are very smart. I love them both to death.
How old was Billy when Lizanne came?
Billy was 3. We got Lizanne as a baby. She was 7 weeks old, I think. 5.5 weeks old.
And when was that? What date?
In 1961. And Billy was 4.5 months, almost 5 months.
So what was Lizanne like just as a baby since you had her so young?
Well, she was a little different than Billy. We lived in my mother's house. My mother loved Billy, but she adored Lizanne. But My mother lived downstairs, and then we had two porches. So Betty Ann would take Liz Ann down to sit around the porch in the carriage, and by the time she got upstairs, Liz Ann was awake and screaming. So my mother's bedroom window was right near our porch, so she'd talk, and she'd be talking to her. But she loved Liz Ann, and she loved Billy. I think when we were first talking about adoption, my mother said, "Oh, you'd be taking somebody else's problems on." I think these are her two favorites. I don't want to say that too loud, but I think so. So.
So she spent a lot of time with them.
Yeah, Liz Ann was, as I say, one time when I'll tell you, Liz Ann, so fun. She was an animal person, an absolute. I mean, she loved animals, any kind of animal. She had an imaginary bird. She called Jackie Gleason. An imaginary bird. We were going out. We were in my car, and my mother was coming down the stairs, and Liz Ann was in the car. She was 2 years old, maybe 2.5, screaming because she had forgotten Jackie Gleason in the house. My mother went up the stairs and said, "Oh, I've got her now." That's the way my mother was affected by them. But yeah, she was a little bit difficult. But a pleasant. There wasn't a person, not a person, that ever said anything bad about Liz Ann, or even Billy for that matter. But every one of Liz Ann was the kind of kid growing up that hated all her teachers. She's a great artist. There's a lot of her pictures here. But she hated all her teachers. And every single one of her teachers, we talked to them, terrific. She was a fabulous girl. They all loved her. But she was just that. She doesn't like you. She doesn't like you. Period.
So how old was she, or how old were your kids when you moved out of your mother's?
We bought a house then when the kids were, Liz Ann, Billy was maybe going to be 7, and Liz Ann would have been going to be 4. One time we had my best friend Marty and his wife and kids over for a cookout outside in my backyard. And Liz Ann locked all the doors in the house and went upstairs in her room and said, she wouldn't let us in. That's the crazy thing she used to do. But she still is an animal lover, and her daughter is the same way, my granddaughter. But she would rather hurt a person than hurt an animal. But
Did she have any pets?
Oh God, does she have any pets? She always had. We had a little black kitten that we got for her called Midnight. I finally had to give it away because she was draping it around like it was a fur piece and picking it up by its tail. He wasn't abusing it to abuse. He was just loving it to death. So we had to wait till she was a little bit older.
How old was she then?
2.5 maybe.
And then later,
later, she always had cats. In high school, Betty Ann was getting something in Liz Ann's room when she was in high school, and I could hear Betty Ann screaming, running in there. She says, "Look at this!" Liz Ann had a kitten in her room. We didn't even know she had this kitten. She used to take it to school every single day. So when that kitten became a cat couldn't drink out of a saucer. We had to open the faucet, and the cat would, just like in school. That's the only way the cat knew how to drink. And she would, the cat's name was Ginger. She would dress the cat, the high chair, the doll high chair, put the cat in the high chair with clothes on, sitting at the dining room table, the kitchen table with her. And that's just Liz Ann, animals. she cries more for animals than she does for people, which isn't bad.
So you had mentioned earlier that you like to travel and that you traveled before the kids came, and then you
With the
traveled
kids.
with the kids too. Do you have
Yeah.
any special memories of vacations? Or
Yeah, we went up to, when Billy was 2, we went up to the Adirondacks. And we wound up at Lake George, but we were going up, and we were looking for a place to stay overnight. We had my mother-in-law and father-in-law with us, and every place we'd stop would have no vacancy. We'd drive along, and there would be a motel, and Billy would say, "No vacancy." And he was only 2. At 2, he could recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Then we traveled. We used to go down to the Jersey Shore. We started off at Wildwood Crest, North Wildwood. Worked our way up to Long Beach Island, and we stopped going to the shore when we joined the swim club when we moved into our home that we just sold. But we traveled across the country, ocean to ocean. Betty Ann and I had a brand new car then. I was still working for Nabisco. Brand new company car. It was Betty Ann and I, her mother and father, Billy and Liz.
how old were the kids?
10 and 7. And we tried to stop at 4 o'clock or around that. We took the month of July, maybe a little bit longer. And we tried to stop at 4 o'clock every day so the kids could get a place that had a pool so the kids could unwind in the pool. We'd eat our lunch in the picnic area along the road in Yellowstone National Park. I got yelled at by the helicopter over above to move my car because Lizanne was rolling the window down to feed a bear. But that was a great trip. It wasn't that crowded either in the car. My mother-in-law would sing songs to the kids. The kids would. My father-in-law just loved traveling. And that was ocean to ocean and back again. We saw all the parks that we could see along the way. The kids were throwing snowballs on the 4th of July in Colorado at Loveland Pass. Always stopped for, never went into a restaurant for lunch. Always said we always buy in the morning for something that we needed. And I had my martini every lunchtime. But it was a good trip. It was, and I traveled the entire, I drove the entire way, 6,700 miles. But it was easy. And they remember this. They remember being, having their picture taken with the Indian that was the model for the nickel out at, I think it was Cody or one of the places out west. They saw so much during that trip. That was so good for them, and I enjoyed it. We all enjoyed it. Then we took them to. I had a couple of business trips to San Juan. We took them to Puerto Rico. We didn't take them to any of the other islands. Oh yeah, Virgin Islands naturally. A little puddle jumper going from San Juan to St. Thomas. But we always went to this Jersey Shore. Then when we bought our house in Homefield in 1966, we knew some of the neighbors because it was only less than a mile from where we were living. And we wondered, where were all the kids summer days? And they said, they're up at the swim club, Hilltop Swim Club. So we joined Hilltop Swim Club. And that was great for the summers because we knew where the kids were. Billy became a lifeguard in his later years up there. And we would eat dinner up there sometimes. We'd have a Sunday brunch up. They were both on the swim team. That was really good. And then when they got older, we went up one year, Betty Ann and I, three times, and I said, man, that's $300 a swim. So they were in high school and college, and we dropped out. But it's still there. And we have fond memories of that. Fond memories of having champagne brunches on Sundays. Not with the kids, I mean the grown-ups. But it was good. It was good because, as I said, Billy was the lifeguard. We knew where he was. Lizanne had her friends up there, a whole lot of kids. So that was a perfect setup for us for the summers.
Do you have any other memories of the kids? You know, special things that happened when they were children?
You know, day by day, they were so much a part of our lives, naturally, that it's difficult to pick out a thing. Lizanne had, when we were in church one Sunday, she fainted and fell over. She was in the first pew and fell over there. And she had a little illness, which was corrected by medication. But as far as illnesses go, they had the normal children's illnesses. They lived up. When we lived in Homefield, they each had their own friends. One weekend, Betty Ann and I were going away, and the kids were in their teens, so they could stay home without a babysitter. So we told them, you know, have a couple of friends over if you wish. Please, no police. So we got home and we looked at everything looked fine. And Betty Ann saw us a couple of things that went not exactly the way she had put them. We found out that the kids had drawn a map and put down everything that was on the tables, and then put them back, but a little bit slipping. And Billy had a party upstairs, and she had a party downstairs, and we said, please, no police? He said, no, but the neighbor across the street, when Betty Ann was shopping one day, said, you having another party this weekend? That's how we knew. That's how we knew. But it's all right.
So then Billy graduated from high school.
Yeah,
and
Lizanne graduated from high school. They both went to separate colleges. Billy met his best friend that he hasn't even now, one of his best friends now, Terry, and Lizanne met Dorothy, her best friend now. As a matter of fact, my granddaughter, Erin, calls Dorothy Aunt Dorothy. So that was all while they were in college.
And then they graduated. Where did they go to college?
Billy started at Boston College and finished off at St. John's in New York. And Lizanne started at New Paltz State, and she finished off at Pace.
And once they graduated, where did they go? What did they do?
Well, Billy went into media, records, bands first. While he was in college, he was a disc jockey too. But that's what that was his. He started in media and continued all the way through. So, one of his best friends now is had a band, and Billy, I don't know what he was, the manager or something of the band, and that was one of his starts. But he moved out. He wanted the big city, and that's where he lived, in the big city. Lizanne Lizanne got married. She worked. I'm trying to think now. Where did she work first? Because she didn't get married until she was 24. I can't recall exactly where she worked. Well, I really can't recall.
So she worked for a while.
Yeah, she worked for a while. Married, had my number one granddaughter. Then, unfortunately, her marriage wasn't good. The man she married was, well, he took off. He was, I'm sure, on drugs. But Lizanne raised that child.
What's her name?
Erin.
Erin.
She raised that child, and she did a good job until that child came. But that's another story. Yeah, she raised her as a single mom, and finally bought herself a house up in Lake Carmel. Moved up there. And Lizanne now is working as a mortgage. She gets all the papers as an assistant to lawyers for closings, and that's what she's doing now.
And Billy, he got married at some point?
Billy got married. Billy got married and married Monica. He worked again, like I said, in the media. He worked for Playboy Television, Playboy Entertainment. They moved him to London, and that's where my second grandchild was born. Megan was born in London. We went there to visit them. He came back, and they came back, and he bought his house. Well, he bought the house in New Rochelle before he went to London, and he was renting it. Then came Hannah, and then came Sarah. And with Lizanne, Erin had Michaela. Well, first she had Nevaeh, then she had Michaela. And I have 4 granddaughters, 2 great-granddaughters. But Lizanne and Erin are in Lizanne's house, and they have, right now, 1 dog, 4 cats. They used to have 2 dogs and 5 cats. But Lizanne, all during her life, she had cats. She had 1 cat that gave birth in our hall closet with 6 little kittens. But that's Lizanne with animals.
One of the things you mentioned earlier was that you went back to school.
Oh, I did.
So when did you do that?
I went back when I was working for Nabisco before I was promoted in frozen food division. I went back to finish off in the business school. I was taking marketing courses and accounting courses and more business administration courses. And I was just a couple of courses from a degree. But then when I started getting I got into my true career, I figured I didn't need those anymore, so I never went back.
Where were you going to school?
Manhattan.
So you went back to the same college?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Went back nights, sometimes 3 nights a week, sometimes 4 nights a week. But that was fun going back there because it was easy for me then. And I was taking courses that I was doing in business, you know, that it was related to what I was doing in my career. So when the first job I got with after I had left Nabisco, I filled out and that was with Claridge Frozen Foods, and they were bought by Hershey. And the general manager there had me fill out an application. Fill out the application, and where it said education, I put down college. Didn't ask for how many, all right. And then I put down, and they wanted to know what I was taking, I put down business administration. So when he was going over it, he said to his, called in when they were going to hire me, said, oh, he's got a degree in business administration. So that day I got a job and a degree all at one time. So I left it that way. So here we
Well,
are.
is there any other stories from your work life of anything significant that you'd like to talk
Well,
about?
my all-time favorite job was with Nabisco Frozen Foods, because that allowed me to. I was flying all over the country then. I started off there as the assistant to the national sales manager, and I worked myself up to regional manager, and I got the best education in marketing and sales that I would have ever gotten in any college in the country, and that was fun. That was fun traveling around the country. I traveled California. I traveled almost 3/4 of the states, calling on people, calling on national headquarters, meeting a whole lot of people. That was fun. Then later on, when I worked for Claridge, that was just as good. Man, frozen foods. I worked for a great guy, and when Hershey and that gang took over Claridge, they let everybody go but me. So it was me and the new general manager, and we built up our own sales force from that. And he just took the map, he put a line down the map, he says, you take this half, I'll take that half. And then we started overlapping. But after a while, I really didn't enjoy staying in a hotel. I had to make too many excuses with the people I was calling on. They always wanted to go out at night, and I just didn't want to do it. So I had a plan. Every place I went, and every town that I called on a customer or something, he wanted to go out that evening, I'd say, I really can't. I have a cousin in the next town I've got to go visit. And so my cousin in the next town took me all through for about 5 or 6 years. And that was how I kept my nose clean and didn't stay out late at night while I was on the road. Those are the two jobs. Then later on, my partner and I, when we started our company of food crafters, they had a summer lunch program in New York City, well, across the country. And we were supplying a lot of the people here in New York City with lunch items. One year we made an awful lot of money. We made so much money, we bought into a restaurant and bar, and we lost so much money. Lasted six months, but that I enjoyed. And I said to Betty Ann, I said, listen, I'm going to buy a restaurant. Do you mind? Go ahead. It's something I always wanted to do because I loved cooking. And unfortunately, I went in with 3 guys, and that's the wrong thing to do. And they were all younger than me, and I had one idea, and they had another idea. And after 6 months, we just chucked it. But we poured a lot of money into it.
Where was it?
It was in Clifton, New Jersey, and it was not too far from the new Meadowlands Giant Stadium. And that's why we thought that would be a good place. But we didn't have a restaurant like I wanted. We just had a place for people to hang out. So we dropped it. And that was that was fun, because I was the daytime boss, and, but my nighttime boss was he would hire a band. It would cost us $800 for the night, and he'd bring in 700. I'd say, Walter, that doesn't add up, and it didn't add up. We got deep in the hole, and we just dropped it. That's it. It's gone.
So when did you retire?
1991.
So after you retired, what was life like?
Golf. It was fun. We lived in the house. Summers I really enjoyed the garden. I enjoyed the side patio. Enjoyed playing golf with my foursome. It was fun.
And did you take any trips or do any traveling?
We took, all told, Betty Ann and I. Betty Ann was like myself. She enjoyed travel, and we took 12 cruises. We went to Europe at least 10 times. I wouldn't have done this without her. So we traveled a lot. We traveled in the Caribbean. We hit almost all the islands in the Caribbean. We took cruises. We hit every country in Europe except the Scandinavian countries, all the Western countries. We even went to Africa. We went to Morocco. But that's what we did. Cruises. If it wasn't a cruise, it was a flight to the Caribbean or a trip to Europe. And that was...
Do you have any specific memories of any of the trips that stand out when you look back?
Well, our first trip to Europe was our first trip to Italy. It was our 25th anniversary. And that, I think, was 19 days or something. That was our first taste of being out of the country, and it was the best trip we ever had. We met some nice people. We saw things that I read about, but I had never seen. We did Italy. We went into Nice first. We flew into Nice first. I remember this trip specifically. We had we're at the Park Hotel with a huge balcony overlooking the Mediterranean. That was our 25th anniversary. Then we by bus we traveled through the bottom part of France into Italy, up in the lake area, and then Venice. I just can't say enough about Venice. That was great. And we did all of Italy. Our first cruise was on the Holland American Maasdam, and that was right after we were married. We weren't married too long after that. We went to the Bahamas and to Havana. And Havana is the third time I had been to Havana, and Havana was so interesting. We went to Alaska on another cruise. That was one of the best cruises. That was so memorable. We used to go to the Bahamas every October. We'd go somewhere on either our anniversary or Betty Ann's birthday. We'd go to Florida on her birthday sometime. We'd go on a cruise. We'd try to take an anniversary to go wherever we were going. Go to the Caribbean, go to the Bahamas on our anniversary. We'd been to the Bahamas half a dozen times, I guess. So, because of Betty Ann, I traveled.
Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about or that we forgot about your adulthood since you retired?
The what now?
Well, let me ask you, I have a question for you. What
Right.
role did religion play in your life?
What role did religion?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's everything in my life. Everything. It was my family and Betty Ann's family are both strong Roman Catholics, and Betty Ann and I are still strong Roman Catholics, and so am I. I mean, naturally, so, I was an altar boy until the Sunday before I went in the Air Force. Religion plays a tremendous part. Tremendous. God has always played a good. He's been good.
Do you have anything else to say about God? Your belief in God?
Oh, do I? Yeah, definitely. I believe in God. I believe in family. I believe in faith, and I believe it's family. I mean, it's God, family, faith, and country. I believe in God. I think everybody should believe in God. I mean, I don't care who's God, what God, but I think everybody should believe in God. I think believing in God is the salvation of this world, because Islam, let them believe in God. Good, great. Anybody that I know who's a religious, believes in his own religion, I find to be a good person. Family, family. That's the second most important thing. Actually, it's the first. I think you should be as close knit a family as you could possibly be. Siblings should love each other. I think that's the whole word. Love and family. Faith, you got to have faith in yourself. You don't have faith in yourself, you might as well chuck it in our country. Hey, love it. As long as you love your country, it doesn't matter if it's wrong, it's wrong. I mean, it's not always right, but it's a good country. There isn't any country in the world like it or as good as it. And those are my thoughts.
How do you think you pass this on to your children, or how did you go about passing on this to
Well,
your
they see I'm a religious person. They see with my illness I have faith. They see I love them. And they see I'm a staunch American. And they see I'm a family man, 100%. And that's it. I mean, I hope I personified all these things to them.
How about politics? Were you ever involved in political life or
Yeah.
anything like that?
Yeah, when I was younger, as a midlife adult, I guess I was involved in local Republican politics. I was a district leader in our district in Napier Park, naturally, and but I haven't. Once I started traveling, I got away from it, and then I realized it really wasn't necessary. I let the other idiots do it. I'm not involved in politics, but I watch politics pretty closely. I'm not going to say that this person is wrong because he doesn't believe what I believe in, or that person is right. But there is a happy medium. But I wouldn't go back into it again.
So if you're looking back over your whole life, what would you say was the most challenging or the most difficult situation that you faced?
What I'm doing now? Cancer. And that's something too. I've had this now for about 15 years. We did, when it was first diagnosed, we did radiation, and for a couple of years, it was fine. Everything was going along. Then it started to upheaval again, and I did hormonal treatments, and it stayed pretty good. Wasn't very good, but it stayed to where it wasn't bothersome, or it wasn't going to be life-threatening. And then a year ago, March, it had metastasized to lymph nodes around my aorta and blocked the kidneys. And that's my biggest problem. How am I handling it? Good. I mean, really, what the hell? I'm still here, and as we say when we play golf, we're walking on top of the grass. We're not looking up at the roots. So that's if you don't have a good attitude, forget about it. I made 82. I'm shooting for 100, with or without this cancer.